Mr. Cammack, by my notes, I'm about halfway done, but let me see if I can speed this up and get you.
Mr. Cognell, would you raise your mic up? There you go.
Yes, sir.
We had you talk a little bit, Mr. Cammack, about the grand jury subpoenas and the reason for that. At some point, I think I heard you discuss with my colleague, Mr. Hardin, that Paxton made a statement to the effect that he was being critical of Mr. Penley and Mr. Maxwell because they won't do any work. Do I recall that correctly?
I don't remember the exact question that I was asked by Mr. Hardin.
Do you remember back during this time, that is back in September of 2020, that happening, that is Mr. Paxton being critical of Mr. Penley and Mr. Maxwell, believing that or stating that they didn't do any work?
Wasn't critical in the sense that like he gave me any detail about what they were or weren't doing. He just said that he couldn't get the people at his office to do what he was asking them to do.
Fair enough. Now, there are different ways of conducting an investigation. You'd agree with me?
Yes, sir.
There are all kinds of different tools that law enforcement can use, TCIC, NCIC, every initial in the book sort of stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
And even lay people can do computer searches, Google searches, Intellius, Truthfinder, LexisNexis, all that sort of stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you literate on LexisNexis, or were you at the time?
Yes, but more proficient in Westlaw.
Okay. And Pacer, do you do much work on Pacer?
No, sir, but I'm familiar with it.
And Pacer is public access to computer electronic records, something like that?
I believe so.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may. And the witness, if you can speak up, Mr. Cammack.
Yes, Judge.
Make sure all of our senators can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Acoustics, not your fault. Acoustics aren't the best. And some of our hearing collectively is not the best either. So. Hold on, get back to your microphone. There you go.
Yes. I'm showing you what's marked as AG Exhibit 1047. And I don't know that you've ever seen this, but I'm going to see if I can walk you through it. I would offer AG 1047, which is a docket sheet on the Contigo matter.
Any objection, Mr. Hardin? Sure.
If I may, please.
Take your time.
No objection.
No objection. Admit to evidence. AG Exhibit 1047.
All right, Eric, if you could kind of blow up the top. And again, I'm just using you as my ventriloquist right now because I don't think you've ever seen this, or tell me if you have. Have you ever seen this before?
No, sir.
Eric, blow up the top of it, which says, obviously, the style of the case, which is Contigo Information Management. Are you familiar with that name, Contigo Information Management?
Yes, sir.
And that is one of the entities, is it not, Mr. Cammack, that Mr. Nate Paul was complaining that an illegal search may have potentially occurred at that place right there, Contigo, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you will go to the second page, Eric, of 1047. Let me go back to the first page, my bad. And on the first page, it shows, does it not, that Judge Mark Lane is the judge in this case, right? Upper left-hand corner, Mr. Cammack.
Yes, sir.
That's obviously public information. and that Mr. Gupta with the U.S. Attorney's Office is representing the government, right?
Yes, sir.
So the whole world can see that based on anybody that has a Pacer account has access to that sort of information, right? Now, if you could go to the second page, Eric, and what that shows, give us the top half of that page. And what we see, do we not, Mr. Cammack, is there's a motion for leave to disclose sealed search warrant that was filed on September 5th, right?
Yes, sir.
And an order granting that motion for leave to disclose a sealed search warrant, right?
Yes, sir.
So that would allow, and that was granted on the 5th, and then it is closed again on the 17th, where someone files an order, someone files a motion to extend the sealing, right?
Yes, sir.
But for those, whatever that is, 12 days, that search warrant would have been the warrant, not the probable cause affidavit. And they probably understand by now, but I know you do. There's a difference between the search warrant and the search warrant affidavit, right?
That's right.
But the search warrant would have been visible via Pacer for those 12 days back in September. Again, anybody with a Pacer account could have logged in and looked at that, at least during those 12 days. Agree with me?
It was not sealed during those 12 days.
Fair enough. Now, when you were working on this matter, did you ever see, Mr. Cammack, any evidence that Mr. Penley or Mr. Maxwell had done anything in terms of investigating the same complaints that you were investigating? Meaning, did you see any reports, any memoranda, any conclusion, anything?
No, sir.
It is possible, is it not? Let's say that I want to investigate whether or not a given prosecutor might have at least been accused in a pleading of doing something improper. You or I can get on Pacer and enter that person's name and pull up every case that lawyer's ever been assigned to, right?
Yes, sir.
And they can do the same to us as well, right?
That's correct.
But if we wanted to investigate whether or not a given prosecutor was doing something, we could look at their history, or at least their history that's visible on Pacer, right?
That's right.
Same with the judge, correct?
It should be public record.
Now, let me be Captain Obvious, because it's a cape I wear a lot. Every single search warrant that is a bad search warrant was signed by a judge somewhere, wasn't it?
Theoretically speaking, it.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess my point is, if someone is arguing, well, a judge signed it, therefore it must be good. Well, if it's a search warrant that was executed, chances are a judge signed it. That doesn't necessarily make it a good search warrant. It's just one more search warrant that one more judge signed. Agree with me?
I agree with that.
I think we heard you testify that Mr. Wynn, during, I guess, the latter part of September, stated that Penley had reached out to him out of the clear blue and asked for documents. You recall that?
Yes, sir. That's what I was told.
Do you know when, Mr. Cammack, ballpark that was?
It would have been, I believe, sometime in the fourth week of September 2020.
Okay, so if you were hired on September 4th, you had been working on this case for several weeks, or this investigation for several weeks by the time you heard that. Agree with me?
Sir, approximately 3 weeks.
Okay. Now, let's get into the time. Mr. Harden had you walk through sort of the frequency of contact that you had with Mr. Paxton during this, and it was about a month. That's probably the easiest way to describe it, is about 30 days, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Harden had you describe your contacts with Agent Paxton, and I think you said, I don't know, 15 to 20 times, something like that, right?
Yes, I did say that.
And during that month or so period, you saw him a grand total of how many times face to face? 2 or 3?
Well, I can tell you the days. So the 26th was
Okay.
one time. September 4th was the second time.
Right?
Then there was the time at the end of September at Nate Paul's house.
That's 3.
And then there was another time when I drove out to meet with him and Brent Webster.
That's 4.
And then there was another time when we met at the Starbucks.
That's 5, right?
It's 5 times.
So let's use as a demarcation, artificial or not, I'm going to call it when the stuff hit the fan, and that is September 30th or October 1st, okay?
Oh, yes, sir.
So before the stuff hit the fan, and we're going to get to there, you had seen him a grand total of 3 times. That is Mr. Paxton, right?
2 times.
2 times, okay. Now, you said, I think in reference to a question by Mr. Harden, that you had talked to him 7 to 10 times on the phone, something like that?
Yes, sir.
And there were some occasional texts as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me, generally speaking, Mr. Cammack, that those phone calls are generally short, to the point calls?
Yes, sir.
Do any of them stand out in your memory for one reason or another? That's not meant to be a trick question. That's just an open-ended question.
I'm just thinking about what stands out in my mind about the conversations.
Okay. Let me keep going, and if it comes to you, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Fair? Would you agree with me, Mr. Cammack, that Mr. Paxton has, General Paxton, whatever we want to call him, has a, let's say, unique style of communication? I'm sure it's not exclusive to him, but what I mean by that is when he wants you, he reaches out to you and you're generally accessible, right?
Yes, sir.
But the reverse isn't always true. When you need him, it ain't always, he doesn't pick up the phone as quickly as you pick up the phone.
I would agree with that.
Okay. And you had 3 or 4 of these occasions where you were saying, look, Mr. Paxton, or look, General Paxton, I need an email address and I need some identification, or I need a badge or something, right?
Yes, sir.
And the response that you get is more or less, yeah, I'm working on it, yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, every time that was kind of the
Fair
response
enough.
that I got.
And you would also agree with me that just about every time you're in the presence of General Paxton, he's either on the phone some of the time or on the phone all of the time. Is that fair?
The first 2 times that I met with him, he was not on the phone.
And those were the interview, right?
Interview, and then the second time that I went there.
Yes, sir.
And then after that, he was on the phone quite a bit.
In your mind, I think, not unlike perhaps others, he's kind of notorious for being on the phone when you need the man's attention. That's just how he rolls. Agree with me?
I didn't know him before
Okay.
all this.
I'm just talking about your experience with him.
Just figure he was busy.
And he is, as far as you know, right? Now, let's get to, speaking of busy, let's get to that point in time, Mr. Cammack, when you were asking for a signed contract and you told Michael Wynn you hadn't gotten a signed contract, and I think that was the night before, and then you roll into Mr. Paul's office the next morning, leaving at 5 or thereabouts, and lo and behold, there is a signed contract on the desk or at Nate Paul's office, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether or not, Mr. Cammack, that on that date that Mr. Paxton was out of town? You know one way or the other if he was?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with me that based upon your observations of the man, he traveled frequently? Agreed?
There was at least one other time, that, yes, sir, that he said he was traveling.
Okay, so let's jump to the second, and again, I'm going to be quick running through these, but we've talked, generally speaking, about the first referral that you received from the Travis County DA's office, right? And that is the complaint about the search warrant.
Yes, sir.
Not too long after you're involved, you get this second complaint, right?
Yes, sir.
And that complaint is referred to you directly. It is mailed to your office, right? Somebody find that for me, a copy of it, the second complaint.
I believe it was emailed to me from Mr. Clemmer.
Okay, whether it was emailed or mailed, my mistake.
Yes, sir.
It was sent to you directly. Agree with me?
Yes, sir.
And if someone were to come in here and state that Travis County DA's office had no idea who you were or what you were doing, and you were just some sort of ghost out there in space, you would disagree with that, would you not?
That would be a falsehood.
And in fact, Mr. Clemmer knew exactly who you were and where to find you, right?
Yes, sir.
And can you estimate for us, Mr. Cammack, how many touches, for lack of a better description, how many touches you had with employees of the Travis County DA's office? And when I say touches, I mean interfaces, emails, phone calls, personal visits. How many touches are we talking about?
Well, and it's no disrespect to the folks over there. I just don't remember everyone's name.
Of course
But
not.
when
I'm not giving you that pop quiz. I'm just asking to estimate it.
Yeah,
estimate
so
for us.
I spoke with one individual who referred me to Don Clemmer, and then I think there was another woman named Amy Meredith, maybe.
Okay.
And then I got referred to a woman named Bailey.
So that now we're up to 4, right?
I think we're at 4, and then from there were multiple,
Repeat visits.
well, just back and forth on an email exchange about the subpoenas, and then 5 or 6 times there, like with Mrs. Molnar, and then I got that other referral from Mr. Clemmer directly.
So if we are counting each subpoena as a touch, we've got 35, 40 subpoenas?
Well, I sent them on the application, just multiple per, just sent them out. There were several emails to their office.
I'm interrupting you, I'm sorry, I apologize, but there were several tranches of subpoenas sent to the Travis County DA's office.
Yes, sir, I agree with that.
And there were several people you communicated with, right?
Yes, sir.
Some were staff and some were lawyers, right?
Yes, sir.
And at least in your mind, Mr. Cammack, they were well aware of who you were and what you were doing, right?
Yes, sir.
And you certainly never tried to hide that fact from anybody. When you were working with the Travis County DA's office, you told them who you were, you told them your job description, you told them what you need. It's not like you were hiding, right?
I was not hiding.
The second complaint is different, Mr. Cammack, in kind, is it not, from the first complaint? Meaning, the first complaint is, may I approach, Your Honor? And just to satisfy, of the second complaint, correct?
Yes, sir, that's the second referral.
So again,
I'm sorry, Mr. Cammack, I really need for you to speak louder when you're answering, because I know.
Yes, Judge, that's the second referral.
and again, like the point I made before you saw the document, although I don't think there was a dispute about it, that was sent to you directly with your name on it, with your address on it. Clearly, they know who you are, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the first complaint, again, focused on the potential illegality of the search warrants. The second complaint focused on a alleged fraud concerning people trying to steal my words, not the complaint word, Nate Paul's property too cheaply, right?
Yes, sir.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but you utilized the resources of the Travis County DA's office to issue search warrants, or I'm sorry, grand jury subpoenas for the first complaint, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you did the same thing with the second complaint, meaning part of the thing that you did to investigate it was send out grand jury subpoenas to try to obtain information, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think I heard you say, Mr. Cammack, correct me if I'm wrong, that you were not keeping General Paxton apprised of the names of the individuals that you had issued the grand jury subpoenas before, right?
I never spoke with him about like who specifically I was issuing subpoenas for, but that's not to say that I don't remember if I had forwarded an email list or something like that.
Fair enough. It's possible that you sent him on one or more occasions a list of folks that, or some sort of detail on names, right?
That's possible.
Not certain one way or the other if it happened, but it's certainly possible.
As I'm sitting here right now, I don't recall that.
Fair enough. But you didn't, in any conversation, as far as you can recall, Mr. Cammack, get so granular with General Paxton about the names of the people that were being subpoenaed that you said, well, Joe Smith on this day, Bob Hunt on that day, Travis Smith on the other. That didn't happen, right?
No, sir.
And I assume it is a safe bet to say that if you sent General Paxton an email containing a list with names on it, you don't know one way or the other whether or not he opened that email and read through it and assimilated or understood what was in it or not. Agree with me?
I'm sorry. Could you just rephrase that one for me?
That's a $500 question. I don't know why I ask it that way. You don't know if he ever opened up any email you sent to him and read it or not, right?
That's right. I don't know.
Okay. Now, in the Thank you. In the investigation of the second complaint, did you think your marching orders from General Paxton had changed? Meaning, if I recall your testimony correctly, Mr. Cammack, in the first referral, he told you to go get the truth or find out the truth or whatever, right? I assume you were operating under the same belief system that General Paxton wanted you to do the same thing in the second complaint, correct?
That was my belief and my understanding.
And at any point, Mr. Cammack, that you were dealing with Ken Paxton, did he ever ask you to misrepresent anything?
No.
Did he ever ask you to, for lack of a better description, lie, cheat, or steal?
To lie, cheat, or steal?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
And I'm including that in a broad sense, not in the literal sense. But also in the broad sense, not the literal sense. Mr. Cammack, never ask you to hide, secrete, destroy. Never ask you to hide any record, conceal anything you did, dispose of anything that you obtained. There was never any suggestion of that, I don't think. Was there?
No, sir.
Now, there was the time when the stuff hit the fan, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was October 1st?
I believe it was October 1st, whatever day that I got a cease and desist letter from Mr. Penley.
Okay. And again, whether it's the 1st or the 2nd, 30th, whatever, you get the cease and desist letter, and what was your reaction when you got that? What was your thought?
I mean, I was shocked. I was confused and felt like a rug been pulled out from under me. And
I heard shocked and confused, and then I didn't hear the last thing that you said.
I just felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me.
Okay.
It just seemed like it came out of nowhere.
And it really did come out of nowhere, if I'm understanding your story, right?
It did come out of nowhere. I had never spoken with Mr. Penley over the course of those 3.5, 4 weeks.
And after Mr. Penley sent you that letter, Mr. Mateer sent you another letter, right?
That's correct.
And this is and he's basically saying, this is unauthorized, you're performing illegal activity, you're whatever. This is the very same Jeff Mateer whose office you sat in interviewing for the job that you took, right?
That's correct.
If I'm recalling it correctly, Mr. Cammack, when you got the first letter from the Penley letter, you responded very professionally, very appropriately, very succinctly. He sends you this cease and desist letter, and what do you reply back?
I think I told him that I would just stand down and something along those lines.
Unlike some other people that you might have heard of, you didn't get volcanic on him. You didn't pick up the phone and slur a bunch of invectives or worse at him, right?
No, that would have been unprofessional.
And to be fair to you, Mr. Cammack, all you were trying to do was do a job, do it well, do it professionally, right?
Yes, sir.
Then it gets even worse because the press starts blowing up, right?
Yes, sir.
And speaking for you, you are a 5-year lawyer, and you have authors, writers, people in the press that you've never spoken to, that you've never communicated with, that you've never heard of, just saying horrible things about you, right?
There were a lot of articles written, and I read a couple of them and then chose just to put that out of my scope of view, just move on with my life.
That was probably a wise decision, but it went into really needless detail about disagreements that you had with your family, and it just blowing everything out of proportion, and it was a nightmare for you, simply put, was it not?
It had nothing to do with anything involved with this. It was just a bunch of trash. I'm sorry.
That's all right. And it was, if you understand the timeline, or I guess if I understand the timeline, I'm asking you if you understand it the same way, Mr. Cammack, that by this point, the so-called whistleblowers had gone to the FBI, and that's when all this volcanic eruption occurred, right?
I'm sorry, could you?
Sure. When the negative press started coming out, it was after the time, at least insofar as what the articles were claiming, that several individuals that used to be with the Attorney General's office had gone and made a complaint with the FBI, or made the so-called whistleblower complaint. Is that consistent with your memory?
I remember reading, I think, about that.
And after this eruption, that is when you drive to Nate Paul's house, right?
Yes, sir.
And I mean, it's just a surreal time, fairly put, for you and for everybody else, right?
Yes, sir.
You go to his house, you had never been to his house before, you're hoping to resolve whatever issues are outstanding. Oh, by the way, you would like to get paid for your work, right?
Right.
And everybody's kind of standing around shell-shocked. When I say everybody, I mean you, Mr. Wynn, your friend or whatever, Mr. Paul, and Mr. Paxton, right?
Yeah, that's who was at that meeting.
And I mean, again, without engaging in hyperbole, it's kind of like everybody's sitting around with PTSD, just like, what the hell was that, right?
Right.
You were asked to continue the good fight, keep working, and in your own mind you say, no, I'm done with that.
No.
Right?
That's right. I was done.
Okay. And then you have another occasion that you detailed for Mr. Hardin where Mr. Thank you. Mr. Webster and Mr. Paxton asked you to come to Austin. You come to Austin, and it's just as weird as as the time before. You don't go into the AG's office. You go over to Starbucks. Brent Webster says, 15 grand ain't nothing. I had to eat 40 grand. And you're thinking, that's not going to put, Post Toasties in my bowl here. I don't really care. My word's not yours, right?
That happened.
Okay. And to this day, you've never been paid anything, right?
$0.
Okay. And the reward that you have gotten is not really a good reward, right?
I haven't received any benefit from any of this.
Let me apologize for that situation.
Thank you.
That should have never happened.
Thanks.
Should have never happened. All that having been said, Mr. Cammack, it is still true, is it not, that what Ken Paxton asked you to do, find the truth.
That's what he told me when we first met. He just wanted to find out the truth about this first referral.
And that's what you were trying to do.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Hardin, or redirect,
No, Your Honor.
or both of you
You can be excused. Good luck,
finished with the
Mr.
witness?
Thank
You may be. Thank you, sir. Call your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House calls Joe Brown.
Bailiff, please bring in Joe Brown.